of loneliness and misery and suffering and unhappiness, and it's all over much too quickly. The question is, have I learned anything about life?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Essence of Zen After Dark. This is Season 2, Episode 5, and today I'm joined with my favoritist of game industry-tied, knowledgeable co-host, Andy Piranha Baldwin. Andy, how the hell are you?
You're doing well. It's been a while. I appreciate that series of buzzwords for my intro.
Yes. I honestly had to say that as well because I can't just simply say that, and no offense to this, that you're just my favorite co-host because, honestly, Lewis is right up there with you.
Well, I'm glad I'm making it interesting at least.
Oh, absolutely, dude. So, like,
Give him a run for his money.
I look at the insights and the logs of the data of the episodes, and it's typically really interesting when it's not interesting. It's when you have a good episode, people like it, and I guess people share it. But some of our more interesting, accidentally long episodes are some of our most viewed and listened to. So, good stuff overall.
Well, I'm glad I can help with the logistics.
Well, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, the topic that we have today, the slew of topics. Oh man, it's actually kind of it's a lot actually. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the gaming industry and tech in general that kind of took you by surprise this week or this month and as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah. Life is weird that way. And honestly, haven't decided on this just yet, but this actually might be the last episode up until after May, depending on when I actually decide on, or if I decide on taking a break in May to get some other projects finished. So it may be a good minute again. We'll see, though.
Well, all right.
But the first topic on our slate today is something that you brought to my attention in twofolds. One, I did not know that the abbreviated phrase for Pokemon Go was Pogo, which makes so much more sense in hindsight. And two, I did not know that what I saw about the stars of the Pokemons and the rates were actually related to something that was actually happening, that was actually given by, I'm assuming, Niantic?
Yeah.
So could you explain a little bit more?
Recent update. So I don't know if there was a demand for this or if Niantic was just like, we're just doing it. But in a recent quote unquote update, as time is purely subjective, they made it so that the eggs that you can get from your friends' gifts or also from visiting Pokestops, the stats for the eggs are now they're not like perfectly visible, like you don't get to see percentages, but you can now see the rarity of certain results from the eggs that you're attempting to hatch. So before you spend your hard-earned incubators, you can know ahead of time approximately what you can expect to get from them.
So would this be safe to assume that we could call this the fact that Nintendo / Niantic is getting into gambling with children?
Well, gambling, at least by all current definition, typically involves some manner of cash out capability. So by the strictest definition, this would not be gambling, as there's no option to turn your game or any contents therein back into currency. You know, when you pay for Pokemon Go, you're typically buying their coins, and then the coins you can turn into items. But there's no chance for that process to be reversed. Well, reversed isn't the right word, but you can't make an exchange back.
Yeah.
You know.
Out of curiosity, is that the argument used to like by EA, Ubisoft, and etc. about like how loot boxes aren't gambling? Do
I
you know
don't
if?
know who's using it, but I'm sure that if push were to come to shove, everybody would be down with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if Niantic offered this voluntarily or if there was pressure or whatever, but Niantic basically decided to provide this information because there was some manner of discussion involving these eggs being akin to loot boxes. So they decided to open up their transparency. Now, are the eggs actually loot boxes? I think there's actually a not so terrible case for no, they're not loot boxes. But at the same, by the same token, if you have concerns about how your product is being viewed and labeled, then taking steps to ensure that the consumer's experience is removed from that of gambling, then providing information to the consumer before they make decisions that may involve them parting with their money is probably a good idea, and I think it's a good decision, or at the very least, I can see no harm to any party, consumer or company, for providing this information. I think it's only a good thing. More transparency is often better. So
I can agree with that. And also,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
same. So, do you think the information that they gave should have? And when I say should have, I'm not trying to load the question, but more just your opinion. So do you think the information that they gave was adequate enough, or should they have gone the extra step to actually give percentages and a little bit more deeper insight?
So it's tough to say because I'm already of camp. I don't think Niantic is treated like. I don't think like the egg system is akin to loot boxes, and we've had this discussion before. In fact, I think we had it in the previous episode, as the fact that intent is a major factor in figuring out, what is or isn't, what falls under certain labels.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to games industry and or killing people. I don't think we talked about that part last time, but it's definitely there. It's on the books. But just in terms, so like, because eggs, at least from where I'm sitting, I haven't played Pokemon Go in quite a while, just because my phone really couldn't hack it. Also, pandemic sort of wanes interest in the ability to play a game that really wants you to go outside. I understand that there's remote ability, that they've put into the game in order to keep people playing. But honestly, that's not really why I was playing it, and it didn't really scratch that itch the way it did previously. Regardless, as a casual player who enjoyed, grabbing eggs, and I had no qualms about, parting with my hard-earned Pokecoins in order to pick up an incubator or several, just to make sure that I was incubating eggs fast and furious. I never really felt like I was missing out on information as to, what I could get out of the eggs. That was just part of the egg experience. Now, granted, you could immediately turn around and use that same logic of, oh, well, if you don't know what you're getting and you enjoy not knowing, then that's part of the experience. And you could immediately turn around and use that to justify loot boxes. So, which I have expressed my opinion before, I think is an incredibly venomous practice.
Yes.
So where's the line here? I think it's in intent. Is the intent to, drain the user's wallet, or is the intent to give them a neat little random bonus? And of course, I can only speak to assuming about intent when it comes to this sort of thing, as I work neither for the Pokemon Company nor for a coterie of vampires. So, just in case anybody asks at any point in time, I don't know why they would. There's no reason to. So on the flip side of that coin, is this information, so my opinion is we don't need this information. I don't think this information is necessary. I don't look at Pokemon like I don't look at most of Pokemon Go as gambling. I don't think I look at any Pokemon Go as gambling. Just hedging my my speech. But since the information is being provided, obviously somebody somewhere thinks that this is either approaching loot box territory or already there. So if the question then is the information provided enough, then my gut response is kind of no. Because the categories are all kind of vague. You know, it's all rated 1 through 5. Whatever is in the 1 category is, or at least appears to be, the most common, and whatever's in the 5 category is the least common. So you have that basic scale, but like why would you withhold the hard data then? What's the merit of that? You know? Now I understand that sometimes you got to make sure that people don't know the exact ingredients. You know, and that's not even like an illusion. That's just an actual fact. You know, when you look at the ingredients on the packaging, they tell you what's in there, but not how much of it, because of trade secrets. So, like, is this like a trade secret? I don't really know. I appreciate the fact that transparency is being provided. I don't know who was asking for the transparency. I'm glad that we have it. Could it be better? Yeah. I just I don't know. It's so weird because, you know, having the information is nice. I'm always glad to see gaming companies, you know, being more open with their player bases about, you know, what they're doing, where they're going, why they're doing what they're doing, because I don't think there's anywhere near enough of that in general. But then you turn around and say, okay, but this seems like a weird place to stop, right? Like, is this as far as we go? We're like, yeah, we did it. We made it. We got to the part where we have like this much information. We did it. Like, is this, you know, if you're the kind of person who's asking for more transparency, are you satisfied with this? I don't know. It just feels like a weird place to be. Like, I'm glad we have it, but it is kind of weird.
No, I agree full-heartedly, and I think you actually hit the nail on the head with the concept of like mainly intent, and I think intent has driven the point so the term loot boxes are now automatically associated with the greedy practice of literally trying to drain players' funds for like. I mean,
that's not surprising. It sure seems to have lived up to its namesake.
Yes, but for like the idea of, if you want to separate the norm over from the actual term, you know, a box that gives you loot. One that, you know, it can be one that you pay for, or a game that literally just it doesn't take your money at all, but still have things you can find in the game world that will give you a random bit of loot based on a percentage. Technically, by term alone, that would be considered a loot box. But because we have the I guess you can call it cultural significance based upon the situations that we have with, you know, EA, Ubisoft, and other companies too. Many do it. They just become more synonymous with, you know, a certain style, the more venomous trend that you described. That aside, personally, again, I'm with you that I don't think how Pokemon Go treats their egg hatching to be like how, you know, Modern Warfare or Call of Duty, you know, or name any other game with purchasable, you know, Fortnite, etc. do their loot boxes, right? And it's one of those things where I believe that's kind of, again, one of those niche elements that makes Nintendo. Anything that they put their name behind, they're going to try to get a little bit more sensibility in terms of not just trying to drain the players' funds, because they know. I'm making big assumptions here, but like Nintendo is synonymous with typically a younger player base, and to be fair, I think the idea of trying to protect that player base is a righteous, for better or for worse, path to follow, or a take to give. And so in that case, yeah, I do think it's fine. I do think it's weird, but I do think it's fine. And as you stated earlier, with like trying to keep trade secrets and not giving the full recipe of the ingredients. No, exactly. And here's the double-sided sword of this, right? Pokemon Go, Niantic, and Nintendo are massive, right? They kind of carved out this whole little augmented reality traveling game space. Let's say they did give the full-on details of data about what percentage gives you what when it comes to the egg hatches. Now you have a bunch of other companies that will probably look at that, try to emulate it with their games, and they will probably do, a loot box mechanic far more egregious.
Yes, and if push comes to shove, you go, well, look
Nintendo
over here.
Does it? So why can't we? And there you go. And so I wanted to point that out, and so I realize you can't see my face because the camera's not feeding through our Discord stream and whatnot. But when I brought up the quote unquote like, oh, it is called, would you call this the loot boxes from Nintendo? I was kind of being facetious because that's what I saw a bunch of headlines doing when it came to the news related to this information, and I just found that.
Well, I mean, in situations like that where a business is practicing an unsavory practice, it's always just a race to the bottom,
That's true. That's actually really true.
Oh, you think what we're doing is bad? Well, why don't I steer your attention over here, and then we're not going to change. We just want you to look over here. If you could do that for us, that'd be great. Pay no attention to the two letters behind the curtain.
I'm the great wizard, not this small man behind the curtain. But no, but yeah. So I found that just an interesting take, and man, what a topic to start this show off with.
Starting off with a bang.
You know what else was a bang though?
What else?
That trailer for Path of Exile 2. Oh my goodness. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Have I seen it?
Oh boy. Was that giant mountain in the shape of an old man's face the shape of the Templar?
I mean,
it's very common.
I couldn't really tell you what was going on for half of that trailer. It was just like a fever dream.
Yeah. What I did find interesting is I saw an article written by Inverse, or would you call it an article? I saw something on the Inverse website where they gave a take on it, and the title of that article with an interview was Path of Exile 2 reveals how the internet is changing video game sequels. And I thought about that. And typically, I don't think it's like this whole big, oh, they're pushing the trend of video games. They're pushing the borders. They're trying to shake this. Like, no, but they are doing a little bit different actions in terms of the. And I kind of always had this for G3 or GGG, Grinding Gear Games, where I found their practice to be a little bit more whole, a little bit more thought out, more methodical. But yeah, so I have no idea how this actually is fully going to go when it releases. I try to keep myself kind of like, okay, whatever is said is most likely going to happen, but there's room to change up until the point of like an interview or a trailer or a statement till release. So I'm going to wait till release happens and then see what happens. But since you brought me into Path of Exile world all those years back, which if anyone want to see those old streams, you can go to youtube.com, the channel Essence of Gaming, and watch our group play that game to hell and back through, back when the world was, you beat the game, you go back to the beginning on a harder like plus mode until they actually started adding more acts, more maps, more elements, and more trends, all of it. So I'm hyped. I'm down. I'm good. Sign me up.
For sure. Yeah, I haven't engaged in Path of Exile in quite a while, just because, like, it can only take so much. Plus, I've logged, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours I've logged in that game. Hundreds of hours. Yeah. That's how many hundreds of hours. Hundreds of hours. Probably not much more than that, though. But yeah, like I mean, part of the reason why I'm excited for a sequel is just because I think that the game as it exists currently is just so bloated at this point with stuff And like if if you've kept abreast of all of that, then more power to you. I don't think that necessarily having a ton of content is a terrible thing, but for me it was just getting to be too much. Just couldn't parse it anymore. So one of the things that I'm excited about a sequel is seeing everything like fine-tuned and trimmed down, and cut away all of the excess that's kind of overgrown the game, and just like a hard reset, but also it's more than a hard reset. You're starting from square one, but also with like a new sense of polish, and hopefully they'll be able to take some good lessons out of Path of Exile, because I remember playing that game when it was just in I think it was open beta. I got an invite to it, so that's how I got into it in the first place. So hopefully there's been a whole lot of good and a couple of misses, and I feel like the team is really good at like communicating with their players and stuff like that. I just have a lot of respect for Grinding Gear Games. Just they've been on a free to play, like aesthetics only profit model since day one. Never had to pay to play the game. It's only been aesthetics. It's literally and like you can buy a few like minor upgrades like bank tabs and stuff like that, but you don't need any of that. I mean, I'm sure if you've played the game for 1,000 hours, you might need it the way I have. But then I don't feel bad about giving Grinding Gear Games my money.
Exactly.
Because, I've enjoyed your product. Please, take an appropriate amount of currency in exchange. And you can go above and beyond. You can buy a whole lot of stuff from that Grinding Gear Games cosmetic shop, and people do. More power to them.
Yeah,
I don't feel bad about giving Grinding Gear Games my money. It doesn't feel like they're coercing me. It feels like they earned it.
I say if I can buy Skyrim 4 or 5 times, I can win some money to Grinding Gear Games for the fantastic.
Did you buy Skyrim 4 or 5 times?
I bought it originally on the Xbox 360.
Are you about to say yes?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a little...
for good reasons, though. Originally bought it for Xbox 360. Then I got a PC, and it became a PC Master Race. Jokes aside. Then I bought Special Edition. I bought Special Edition. So no, I guess only three times. So yeah, and I consider all those 3 good reasons, because one was literally a platform shift, and the second or the third purchase was when they optimized the game with a slightly improved engine that also opened up the entire modding scene to be far more expansive. So, and at the same time, I think those purchases were like at lower prices. So the first time was $60 for the Xbox 360. Second time was like $40, and that's not just because it was a deal. I think it was like not from Steam sales, but from the actual initial release from Bethesda. And then Special Edition, I think, also came at a discount at initial launch as well. So, but that's it. And I only praise Skyrim mainly because of the community, not because of Bethesda. While I think Bethesda is still or was super great, we already know about their track record for trying to make sure they got a company to buy them, i.e. Microsoft. But that's neither here nor there for the conversation. But I will say where Path of Exile 2 has been, or Path of Exile in general has been gleaming with goodness, and where Grinding Gear Games have, shined bright like a diamond amongst, well, actually, no, I guess they got Diablo to compare with, but even then, I think Path of Exile is a clear, superior product, in my opinion, personally. Don't hate me. Apparently, newer games like Outriders are finding their way into trouble after a apparently pretty decent launch. Now, I've not played the game myself, nor do I have any interest in it, but I saw a lot of Destiny and Destiny 2 players and fans say that Outriders was a game that was giving them what they wanted from Destiny. Destiny 2. But recently they came out with a new patch. One to apparently fix a bug for wiping your inventory during crossplay. Good of them for fixing that, but they also
sounds like a serious bug. Sounds like the sort of thing you want to put a patch on.
Exactly.
Just want to put a little Band-Aid on top of that one.
But in the same vein of their updates, they apparently threw out a massive change to loot grinding, and they nerfed a few classes to the point where it seems like, and this is all speculation because there's no official statement from the company who made the game, Square Enix, that I know of to date. But many people feel like they made the change to the loot and grinding, making it much harder to get the gear and the pieces and the loots to make the pieces of the gears and etc. To extend gameplay and game time. Whereas before, the entire fan base, from what I can see on Reddit at least, I know the Reddit post is an official post from the dev teams, and every comment is from player base. They were happy with the current pacing of like how fast they got from one point to the next point. They said it actually felt like very normal, very optimized, very you grind, but not to the point where you get sick of it and you get to move on and actually enjoy yourself. But apparently, it took a hard turn where now they have to grind to the point where they get sick of it. And because the game isn't actually fully launched into like, what do you call it, 1.0, they might be shooting themselves in the foot.
Early access?
I think it's still early access or beta or something.
Are they... Well, I mean, if it's an early access or a beta game, it's a lot harder to support any righteous indignation in that regard. And I mean, part of early access or being in beta is sometimes upsetting the player base. My thoughts immediately go to, at least in terms of inoffensively doing so, my thoughts immediately go to Darkest Dungeon when they incorporated the corpse system and players went up in arms because they didn't like it and threatened to bring the whole game down. So they ended up compromising with a Darkest Dungeon config setting. But that was an instance of the game that's in early access. It was still undergoing production, and a wildly unpopular change was made. And I wouldn't doubt for a second that some players quit and they didn't go back.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that didn't involve any of the players' money or anything like that. You know? I mean, you pay for early access. Well, typically you pay for early access depending on how early the access is, but that is part of the early access sign-on. User assumes all risk sort of deal. So
okay. Also, just to clarify, the game actually, at the time of recording this, it is officially out as a stable, full-on game. Okay.
So is this a change that was made on launch then?
No, it changed recent, like 4 or 5 days ago. But with that, like you said, like I it's hard to not agree with you. But yeah, it's okay. So the meta change, the fan or the player base will respond, and from there they can decide where to go. If they roll back and try to get back to where they were prior to make the players happy, cool. If not, also cool. But at that point, I think you're going to lose out on your player base, and they're going to likely crash and burn if they piss off the player base that much so. We've seen it happen with Destiny. We've seen it happen with other games. Like, well, what was that? Where you fought like monsters? Like it was like a 4-man team versus the other player who was the...
Oh, Evolve?
Yes. Well, that one wasn't pissing off the players. It was just not evolving or, funny enough, evolving or adding enough content as it went. But yeah, that's how it goes. You speak with your money, you speak with your interaction. It's just that in this situation, it's a little bit more difficult because you've already put down the initial money, and then the changes comes after. So it's a little bit more of a but I don't know. Hopefully, if you have any viewers who are players of the game, they can chime in. But
I mean, when it comes to sinister post-release, like game editing, really got to hand it to Fallout 76 for taking a shake on that one. It took them forever to make any bug fixes or actual beneficial changes to the game, and then once they had done so, they simultaneously stealth nerfed a whole bunch of abilities and in-game mechanics in order to slow down the drop rate of items and any other like player beneficial stuff, just in an effort to lure players into the cash shop. So, I do not know the game well enough. I don't know if it has microtransactions or anything of the sort, but that can definitely be a motivator. I'd said if that's not the immediate, like, if it's not immediately obvious why this change is being made, then I would honestly have to look into it, because I just wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
Or it could even just be it could be like a preemptive sort of thing, planning for a future change. It's hard to say what goes on behind the scenes, because there are a lot of driving factors.
Oh yeah.
Not all of which are necessarily in the ballpark of the game designers themselves.
Yeah. Which is, if you are on the outside looking in, again, critiques, in my opinion, are always welcome and are needed and should be validated. But to say for certain with 100% that you know what's going on without any evidence to support said claims, you might want to take a few steps back and just go, it seems like this is what's happening. And until we get information from the team, the devs, the studio, the producer, whatever, then we should at least keep an open mind of we might not have it on the money. We might, but we also might not. So just always keep that bit of skepticism, even on yourself, when you think something might be going on. That said, if Outriders isn't your thing and you don't have a PlayStation 4 or 5, and you've always wanted to play Days Gone, apparently it's coming to PC in May. And I will say, it's a game that I am looking forward to playing. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because we have a bit of discussions about this game and how it ties into Sony as a whole much later in the show. But Andy, do you have any thoughts and opinions on Days Gone?
Not right this second. What piqued your interest in it?
One, I'm a sucker for like zombie games like it. I think it was or I expected it to be kind of a void to fill at that moment, the hole before Last of Us 2 came out. But I actually never got around to playing it, and I did, and I will be playing it shortly when this comes out on PC. But yeah, that's just out there. But again, like the real reason why it's on this topic board now was to set up another discussion much later, because I kind of find this pretty funny that, oh, hey, it's coming out with the PC release after we heard what happened at Sony, which we will talk about a little bit later.
Momentarily.
But I guess aside from that, also we got news that apparently Epic, they might be hemorrhaging money like it ain't nobody's business. They're expected to lose over $300 million on Game Store exclusive, trying, their tactic of trying to bring in players to use their launcher and buy games that are exclusive to their market, to essentially kind of stand up and compete with the likes of Uplay, Origin, and Steam. So, we'll...
This is unsurprising.
Yeah.
I laud Epic for taking a shot at it, but you went for the king, and that is a tough opposition to dislodge.
Yeah. And so I don't want to just kick Epic wallets down for many reasons that I'll get into it momentarily. But I don't want this to be seen as me saying, or me covering the story of me saying that the reason why Epic is losing out on their tactic is due to the fact that no one aside from Steam should be a thing, right? There are a lot of people, and I'm not going to say everybody.
I was about to say, I don't think most people would agree with that assessment. I mean, Steam definitely has its fans, no doubt, but it also has its detractors.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's about to look at Epic Store and be like, serves you right. I think they're going to look at Epic Store and see, and they're not going to say serves you right, but they are going to say, I told you so.
Yes.
And honestly, like, because even I wasn't really swayed by Epic Store. You know, I like Steam. I like my Steam launcher, and I like having all my games in one place. 2K, I think it's 2K now. 2K now has this launcher that pops up whenever I launch Civilization off of Steam, and it won't let me close it while I have the game running. So I just fire up the old task manager and just put a bullet in it, because that's the only way to get rid of it, and it doesn't seem to affect the game at all. Just because, like, I don't want to have to deal with that. You know, it's not a matter of like, and I guess Epic really needed to go deep if they were going to do this. Which, you know, explains the giant profit loss, but hopefully they haven't completely crippled themselves. I've never known Epic to be a particularly malevolent force in the games industry, although feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Can't think of anything off the top of my head, though, that made me go, oh, yeah. But, you know, they definitely went at it with everything they had. You know, there were a lot of free games, a lot of incentivizations to get people to download and try out their launcher. But for a variety of factors, because I don't think you'd be able to really pinpoint this on any one thing, other than you went up against Steam and you got punched for it. I mean, obviously that is a contributing factor. I don't think that's solely responsible. You know, you're also dealing with, you know, you handed out a lot of stuff for free. That was a big risk to the company, as well as, you know, just like dealing with entrenched, not just like gamer entrenched behavior, but like culturally entrenched behavior. You know, when people, you know, think about a big game launcher, they think about Steam. I don't think Steam is verbified the way Google is, but it's gonna. I laud them for taking the shot, and I feel like even if they didn't come out ahead at the end of this exchange, you definitely generated a lot of discussion about it. I feel like there was a lot of talk relating to Epic, just in term, you know, they did put out a lot of free stuff. People were definitely aware of their product, if nothing else. But even if they couldn't shake the Titans' grip, I think they've at least loosened a finger in the sort of the way that, you know, if another company were to come around and take a shot at this sort of thing again, you might, I don't know if you would get the same response, but you definitely know that there are people there who are waiting for the next big thing. And so, you know, credit where it's due.
Absolutely.
I definitely feel bad for Epic. I hope they can pull out despite losing all this cash. You know, one of the questions posed was whether or not this, you know, their strategy of, you know, get the word out, get all these games out for free, you know, was that the right strategy? Well, they've lost millions of dollars, so clearly not. But what was the better strategy? You know, like, what's the alternative? I don't think if you're the first company going up against this Titan, you know, you're not gonna knock Zeus off his throne just yet. But at the very least, you know, it's something for other companies to be able to look at and be like, how should we approach this?
Yeah, I will say, and I want to give Epic these little beneficial nods, I guess, right? So I think while they've lost 300 million or set to lose 300 million, I don't know if this is still them losing out on their battle just yet. Their main target was to be a disruptor, and they definitely disrupted via with Steam and with Apple. Their little back and forth around Fortnite on their mark or Apple, not iTunes. Is it called just the App Store or? Yes, App Store.
I don't even know. I do not partake. So
yeah. So, they disrupted, and they caused a lot of discussion. These discussions led to studios and developers and indie developers actually saying like, hey, no, they're right in terms of how much money that we get to make after signing off this deal that took large portions of our profit when we are just a small group of people. And that led to Apple making a change in how they charge people who make a profit underneath a certain margin because they're a small indie studio. And once they get past that threshold, then they step into quote unquote big dog territory and get charged, or their agreement is of a larger or a smaller split for them compared to what Apple takes. Same thing with Steam. I believe the Epic's statements and stepping into this environment made Steam make a few changes to certain policies and regards. I can't remember exactly what they were, but I remember it was a big deal because it was around that time where everyone was saying, Epic made Steam make a move. It wasn't a big move, but they made Steam move. And that's a success, whether or not you want to say they lost the war but won that battle. And secondly, Epic also came out and said, hey, if you want to use our engine to make your game and you make it exclusive on our store, you get to save out on some of the incentives of purchasing, for like premium features on this engine. That actually is a good, appealing feature for developers. And then third, if you buy a game that belongs to Epic, to my understanding, I haven't actually checked this recently because I haven't bought a game that was like Fortnite or whatnot. But if I'm not mistaken, like there is no, if you bought another platform and you launch it, it automatically opens up the Epic store. Because that's one thing I think you mentioned that is the biggest problem when it comes to other launchers. If I buy it on Steam, I don't want it to launch your launcher to play the game that I bought on Steam. That's the biggest issue. If I bought it on Steam, let it stick in Steam's platform and ecosystem. If I buy it on your launcher, then let it stick inside of your launcher in your ecosystem. Point blank. Period. So I do think that's where a lot of the benefits that Epic's moves and decisions should be applauded. But again, as you stated, in terms of trying to be the quote unquote next Steam. One thing I can tell you what they should have done different is make sure that their launcher was better designed and better packed with functionality. I should not have to go through a bunch of different menus just to be able to go through seeing the actual game stats versus that of the actual store. It was a really weird and just badly baked in platform at first. They've been updating it as time goes on, as applications do nowadays, but if you're going to come out the gate swinging at some of the biggest people, you want to make sure you yourself are, make sure you've gotten right first. So, But I still think they got some fight in them, and we'll see what they do down the line. But yeah, I honestly, even though I don't know if 300 million is a drop in the bucket for them or something that they expected to happen. Because if they went out of the box saying, you can get this game for free this week or this month, etc., but toned it down to be less than what they offered, they probably could save more money. But then again, they got some users to use their ecosystem. I don't know if this is a part of their long con or sorry, let me not say con. That may be a bad.
You can say long con. It's a turn of phrase. We know what it means.
Okay, thank you. The long con or not, but we'll see. Because I don't think they're going to close down shop anytime soon.
If they've got a base, even if it's small, you can grow that.
Yeah.
May have hurt getting here, but now that you're here, they'll be able to turn it into something.
Yeah, it's weird. we'll see what happens. We'll see, what it does and what it do. All I want to do is make sure that people are very cognizant of not just flat out saying we only need Steam. Because in terms of Steam as a platform, as an ecosystem, as a launcher, really think about it. People often hate pop-ups or in-your-face advertisements or in-your-face, pushy salesmen. When you start the Steam launcher, oftentimes you get a pop-up saying, "Oh, look what's on sale this week," or "Look what's hot this week," and you go through the little next button, whatever. There's no. There's Steam offline mode, but to be fair, Steam is fully DRM, right? And in the past, people often forget that when Steam was first, becoming a thing, people did not like it. It did not sit well with people. In the same vein as every new launcher nowadays does, people did not take to it nicely. It wasn't until years later that it became a norm. And that's because Steam had no real competition, and they were able to just push forward with new innovative trends and things to get people on their side. So just remember where Steam came from and where it is now, and then make sure you're not just, crapping the bed.
It's like WoW Classic. It wasn't always this good. You think it might be, but it wasn't. Trust us.
You want to know who did learn from crapping the bed many times in the past, though?
My younger self, but I don't think that's where this conversation is going. So
no, not at all. Yeah, no. Microsoft. Apparently, Microsoft has just been knocking it out of the park when it comes to the gaming sphere, right? Their new take on trying to be games first. They're buying up all of these studios, which I think is both good and both bad because they're like Thanos trying to gather all the companies into one gauntlet. But I digress. But apparently, and this is just a rumor, it's speculation based upon quote unquote reliable sources from unnamed employees at Microsoft. But the rumor is Xbox Live Gold is going to see some changes in the coming months. The biggest one being they're thinking about, again, allegedly, making Xbox Gold not a requirement for online play.
Well, it's about time.
Yeah. But I wonder, is this because like people are really loving like the Xbox Game Pass and like they're making enough profit from that to say we can pull back on this one thing to try to get more people to come to our console because now you don't have to pay a monthly subscription just to play online with your friends? Or is it more of a actual let's just find more ways to just bring more people in, just like blank period, screw if we lose money or not. I don't know, because if it's the latter, though, I can see them like reversing this change in a couple of years if it goes through.
I think you'd be hard pressed to undo a change as major as that, considering how incredibly vital online play is to so much of what Microsoft does. It feels like if you handed it out and then took it away, you would cause a riot.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I say it again. It's like we're already it's like so much of online, like, bleh. I cannot put this thought together. So much of gaming is predicated on being online that it feels like something that should have been implemented a very long time ago.
Yeah, though. The only argument against that I have was, as a given example, Nintendo, right? In the past, a lot of their games were, free to play online before the Switch. And when that was the case, typically performance was horrible. Now, one can argue, because I do not know the books at Nintendo as like the whole of the company, and they probably could have diverted some funds or some assets to increase that performance and that efficiency of the product. As a matter of fact, there's a reason to have that idea from Switch, so I'll get there in a second. But people thought that when the Switch came out and they came out with this, Nintendo online subscription to play online on the Switch, that the services would get better. And to be fair, compared to previous instances of like previous Smash games, performance is in fact better. But then you still look at things like the not Mario Party, but just the Mario
Smash.
Adventures. No, well, Smash 2, but it's super noticeable on one of the normal Mario games. One, you can play 4 players: Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad, or Toadette, and or etc. If you play online, it's almost impossible because there's so much stutters, there's so much lagging, there's so much rubber banding that is just horrific. And so people can say, well, we were paying for this now, so shouldn't this get better? And then you just wonder if their infrastructure is just crap. So I know it's possible. I definitely agree that it should always be free because it's one of the driving factors of the game, especially when you remove so much of same console multiplayer stuff. But that's a different discussion altogether.
I mean, it's in the same vein, Online multiplayer has become so dominant that local multiplayer has fallen to the wayside. Not that it's gone; it's definitely still around. But it's nowhere near as prominent as it used to be. And if the expectation for the player has changed from couch co-op to online co-op, but your marketing doesn't reflect that, then I mean, good on you, I guess. You're extracting cash out of people who really don't have any other options. Some people would say that that's just shrewd business.
Capitalism. No. Yeah, but so we'll see if Microsoft does make that change. I think it'll be fantastic. It'll be phenomenal, and it'll show
it'll
that
either be phenomenal or they will immediately stop putting any effort into maintaining the servers.
True. Which, to be fair as well, if we went into a direction where they put most of the onus onto developers of the games to say, like, just have servers for your game to handle the online play, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But we've seen, especially with people like Sony, where they don't want that, especially also Nintendo. They don't want, if they can help it, games that have their own controlled servers, when it comes to online play. Sometimes I get it, especially when it comes to things like Nintendo. And one of the reasons being is if they do not have direct control and say kids get on something and then like an event happens and then parents may blame Nintendo. Nintendo can just say, well, we're not the owners of the server. They'll go, yeah, but you're Nintendo. It's your game. It's your console. And it's like, okay, well, now our image is ruined.
I was about to say, Nintendo's approach to a lot of the online stuff has to be different.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of branding.
Oh yeah. And I keep that in mind, and it's the only reason why I give them so much leeway in that regards. And it was like years ago when it came to the DS, I forget which, but it revolved around like how in one of the Animal Crossings back then, you used to use friend codes and etc. just to play with your friends when you're not local. And I found it to be so, cumbersome, so annoying, so irritating. And then I found out the reason why is because it's a massive stopgate to like stopping kids from just friending anybody and communicating with anybody and yada, yada, yada. Don't get me wrong, they can still do that, but it's just more difficult. And again, whether you think that's right or wrong or more beneficial or more efficient, when it comes to protecting kids and things, I'm always going to give a lot of leeway in that regards because, when it comes to kids, they're stupid. So
it's true.
Yeah. If you're a kid out there, you're stupid. I love you. Not in that way, because you're stupid. Might have to cut that.
No. And if you thought it was that way, then you're stupid.
Moving on, though. Another big thing that apparently
we should really learn a thing or two about our own demographic, huh? We should probably do that one of these days.
To be fair, I do have that information. It's our main demographic is typically the United States and Canada, ages if it was like 20 or 21 as a starter base, up to like 35 is our top notch, and then our dominant sex, I believe, like 70 or 80% male, with the rest being female, etc. But yeah, just jokes aside. But I am showing that I do keep an eye on the analytics and who's listening and watching, and I appreciate your time and your ears listening to our soft, dulcet voices.
All right, what's next on the docket?
Kojima, baby. Kojima. I love me a Kojima with his glasses and his self-insert as a goopy BT from Death Stranding. But another rumor on the block is that Kojima is in talks with Microsoft to bring a Xbox exclusive video game sometime this year, or at least showcasing this year, and it'll release either next or the year after. I would assume next year, actually, not 2 years. You wouldn't show a game off. Well, never mind.
Well,
we yeah.
After Duke Nukem, I mean.
Oof. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what Kojima will bring Xbox if this rumor turns out to be true. And if we know anything about leaks nowadays, it's a purposeful leak and it's true, and we'll see shortly. I wonder if it'll be another Stranding game.
Boy, I hope not.
I know you don't like it, but I personally really did and still do enjoy Death Stranding, which I bought twice, one for PS4 and then one for PC. But
you need to calm down on these multi-purchases.
Hey man, when I actually enjoy something, I do not mind spending the extra tip of the hat. I don't. It's yeah. But where Microsoft has shined and its rise to fame, its rise to glory, its rise to kingdom of the gaming sphere, a lot of the opposite has been happening with Sony, and this isn't just recent. It's been some of this has been a build up for over the last, I want to say, 5 or 6 years, give or take, depending on the sources you want to bring in and how you want to view the perspective. Ideally, I'm talking about the influence of the East versus the West, because there's been a lot of decisions that were made by Sony lately that I do believe, most of which were confirmed, and then others were, kind of still alleged, because one source is from an Ask Me Anything from an ex-Sony employer on Reddit. And before someone goes, oh, well, they could be lying, the AMA subreddit on Reddit typically is vetted. They talk to people to get permission, and once that thing is verified via communicating with the mods, is typically taken with more grain, or with a bigger grain of salt than just a little grain of salt. So
this grain of salt is larger than the average grain of salt.
Yes. It's like trying to weigh 500 pounds of feathers versus 500 pounds of bricks.
Gotcha.
I don't get it. Okay, I love that video. But essentially, what the reports are saying from this ex-employee from Sony is that for the last couple of years, and this goes all the way back to the PS Vita, their mobile gaming system. It's essentially a battle over the control of the company and that company's direction. Essentially, that of PlayStation, not Sony as a whole, but PlayStation. And one of the biggest indicators of this is actually it was years ago, where I believe Japanese Twitter, if I think that's the proper way to determine it, but the Japanese community on Twitter brought out a point a good while ago that back in the day when you played PlayStation, the default configuration of the controls were that to fit the Japanese you call it style, bases, I don't know. Where essentially circle was the confirmation key, triangle was the back key, and X and X and square were your alternate keys. Where now it's X is your confirmation key, and square is your primary key, where triangle and O are your secondary, and reverse key, your back key. This is a massive. Well, many took this, or they stated that it was a clear sign that the PlayStation from Sony started to shift their attention away from the East, that being Japan, to the West, that being the States. And from there, it just snowballs, right? The same point of people say, well, why wasn't the PS Vita, fully supported? It was a great console. A lot of developers had their backs behind it. And And there's like, oh, it's because they found out a lot of people in the West were would pirate the games. They would mod it, hack it, flash a new firmware on it, and then pirate games. And to the culture of the Japanese industry in terms of the gaming, they didn't like that. And it was like, no. They initially tried to circumvent that by doing the proprietary memory cards for PS Vita, which many people, remember of being like a really negative thing. Because like, okay, why? But, we could have easier ways to store data, yada, yada, yada. That's because they want to circumvent pirating. But that didn't really slow it down at all. And so Sony PlayStation simply said, okay, well, just drop it. Just drop it. I was like, oh, people in the East probably won't do this as much. Well, no, it doesn't matter. People are going to pirate the games all across the globe. Just drop it. And so it was dropped. Now, going into other decisions from Sony, and this is where Days Gone on PC, comes back. Apparently, Sony wants PlayStation to come out with more big hit games like Last of Us. So much so that they're apparently already working on a Last of Us remaster for the PS5. A game that is not that old is already getting a remaster. Now, developers came to Sony and was like, hey, we can do Days Gone 2. We did the writing. We're ready to start. We can kick this off. We can go strong. We can improve on our mistakes. Sony said, no. And apparently, because I believe Naughty Dog is the developers behind Days Gone, there's talks and statements online saying that they're also ready to make another Jak and Daxter. But apparently Sony doesn't think that that'll be a big hit. So they sidelined it. They put it on the couch. They gave it a timeout. They say they want a remaster of Last of Us ASAP. And they don't want a Days Gone 2, but they're not against making more money by releasing Days Gone 1 on PC, which I found kind of funny. Kind of like, okay, well, no sequel, but you can get it on PC now. And so this has spawned a lot of people to feel like Sony has just lost their ever-loving flipping minds. And that's not even to take an account of the decisions for their engineering for the PS5. And this one, I don't really... I shall. And this one, I don't give them that much flack because I think their thought process and their heart was in the right place, but it just did not fire off. It wasn't executed properly, and they didn't think about the 5 steps, the 10 steps ahead of themselves. The PS5 has technology with their hardware to do super fast loading for their games. So you get like less load times, less pop in. Everything is super fast when it's designed specifically for the PS5. The problem with that is it utilizes a very special, or they say very special, NVMe SSD hard drive on the actual system, which means you're limited to the storage on that special SSD drive. So if you download a bunch of games, because everyone wants to go digital today anyway, and even when you use a disc, the disc just gives you the DRM confirmation license going, okay, you can download this, and then it downloads the game on your system anyway. When you want to play another game and you're full up on storage, you have to delete your other games, and then say you want to play that game again, you got to re-download it after you delete something else. And then, okay, well, how about expanding your storage? Well, you can't, because you can't use any old hard drive. You can't use any old external USB connected portable hard drive, because it needs to be the specific, very fast NVMe SSD. And so, well, they kind of handicapped themselves, and that's another, what's the meme where someone's riding a bike and then take a baton and then put it between the spokes of their tire, fall, and goes, this is your fault.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah. And the final. I know I've been talking for a long time, Andy. I apologize, but
by all means, go off.
Oh boy, I shall, because this kind of hits me personally. This is the one thing that I cannot stand for 2 reasons. One, my wife works in the library system, and she is working on her master's in archival history science, essentially the science behind archiving history, be it physical and nowadays digital. And what that basically means is things of old, think like the Atari or the NES or your arcade games. There are actual organizations out there that dedicate their time and money and efforts to making sure these games do not go the way of the dodo bird and can still be played in some form or manner, be it keeping the actual physical hardware in pristine condition or dumping that software to be emulated somewhere else. Well, Sony said, hey, we know a lot of you guys still play the PS3 and some of even the older PSP and PSP Vita. All of our software markets for those systems, yeah, we're gonna cut the cord. Well, are you gonna archive them? No. So are you gonna do anything with it? No. We're just PS4 and PS5 forward, stronghold, baby. Let's go. After a certain date, and I apologize, I don't have that date on hand with me right now, you will not be able to go to the PS3 market on the actual console and download or buy and download games anymore. If you've already purchased the game, you can re-download it, apparently. I don't know how long that's going to last either, though. But you can re-download it, but you cannot purchase anything new. Now, that's all fine and dandy.
The store is shutting down in July. The Vita is shutting down in August.
Oh, it's much sooner than I expected.
July 2nd and August 27th.
Ugh. That would be all fine and dandy if the industry as a whole would not go after, I say quote unquote, piracy, but I mean specifically in the case of keeping a lot of the older, already off the market, no one else is purchasing these games anymore, or like they're super discounted at a rate, or they're sold secondhand by like mom and pop stores or through eBay. Trying to keep these games alive is essentially it's a part of history. It really is. It may not be as important as like the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, but I guarantee you, if it has some value, Nicolas Cage wants to steal it. And so just put some effort behind keeping your stuff alive. Sony, you have a legacy. You have a strong legacy in the gaming industry and in the gaming fandom. You have a fan base, a massive one. People crowned you as king of games for like the last decade, almost decade. Or maybe even, yeah. The PS2 is one of the top selling consoles of all history. And then you just go over here and just say, yeah, screw you all. Yeah. And the worst, the thing that was like a backhand slap to everybody was they announced this recently, and apparently there are still developers who are making games solely for the PS3 and the PSP Vita still. And they had no notice that they have literally a few months to get their games finished and out before people cannot buy them on the market anymore. That's disheartening. Rough. Yeah. Get your shit together, Sony. Damn. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
It was a good soapbox.
Thank you.
Squeaky clean.
I gotta smell like lavender. Actually, ironically, not sponsored. I wish we were sponsored. I've been using Dr. Squatch. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I think I've heard of that.
They have a lot of commercials and ads on YouTube and whatnot where like a dude with look like a surfer bro comes on and he's like, "Have you been using the normal soap to wash your body? It's gonna shrivel up your jewels. You got to use more natural things."
Have you been using regular soap? A bullet to the head would be faster. Use this soap.
Pretty much, like legit. The ads are actually really good. They're some of the only ads I can watch like for 3-minute ads, 100% all the way through, be entertained and not be upset that I actually watched the ad. So kudos in that regards too, Dr. Squatch, or I think it's Dr. Squatch soap.
They did it, those mad lads.
So do you have any particular takes on the whole Sony news? And if not, do you have a your game spotlight portion that you might want to?
I mean, it feels like they're just trying to make a really fast pivot into like their future. That's why you would cut that sort of thing really, really quickly. You don't want to support it. You don't want any you don't want any publicity towards it or anything, you know. Like that's why you close down a market, because you want the market to go elsewhere.
That makes sense, actually. And I think I probably should do more due diligence to try to keep in mind of, again, the pandemic. Not to just say the pandemic is an excuse for any old action, but it does make an impact on how companies see their profit and their assets and how they want to move in the future. That's a fact.
For sure.
So maybe they just say we do want to make some changes to the PS5, or they're trying to make plans for the PS5 Pro, make some changes to the current digital market of online games. Maybe try to bring back their PlayStation View service to compete with the Microsoft game streaming platform. I don't know. I really don't. But again, I will say if you're going to make that decision, you know, find some archivist out there to hand off your legacy stuff to. It's not hard. There are people who out there who will greatly be willing to take it.
We'll bend over backwards.
And forwards. Oh my.
And side to side.
Oh my.
Calm down.
No.
Okay. Compelling counter argument.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to what the future brings. I want to see how Sony responds, how Sony acts, you know, what happens next, what Microsoft does next, and how, you know, realistically speaking, sorry, I have new metal in my mouth. I went to the ortho yesterday. But speaking realistically, God damn it, I can't say that word. Anyway, these quick changes are not end of the world or a 100% definite way of saying, you know, Sony has lost their crown and they're no longer on top or any of that. But something is still to be said when it comes to the public perspective and the public viewing and how the public sees you. And right now, very rapidly, the general public has gone and said, yeah, Microsoft has done more to be right by us than Sony has literally in like just these last 2 months. And I find that both weird, interesting, and kind of funny.
Hopefully it doesn't turn out completely awful for everybody.
Oh, dude, this is real world, a real life. Of course, it will. Just inevitable. It'll happen. To quote Thanos, reality is often disappointing. Wait, is that the actual line or is it something else?
I don't know. It sounds like something I would say, though.
Andy is Thanos confirmed.
Whoa.
No, he is not a genocidal universe wiping maniac. Okay, which in the comics,
I am purple.
That's news to me. You should probably go see a doctor. In the comic books, just as a reminder for those who do not know, just fun fact: Thanos actually did the whole snap thing to impress Death. And I don't mean that in like a metaphysical sense. Death is an actual character in the Marvel universe. You know, she's a she. She's an entity, a being that exists since the dawn of time. And Thanos has the hots for her, and he did it to impress her, and she wasn't impressed. Needless to say, I think the movies did a better take on why the snap happened.
They gave him some nuance. I always... Are you familiar with that scene?
What scene
of Thanos returning to death? After having wiped out the whole universe?
I vaguely remember. I believe like he came to her all proud and gallant, and then she turned him down and he cried, didn't he?
I don't think that he cried. But the way the scene unfolds is Thanos is like, "Hey, look, I have wiped out the entire universe just for you. This is my gift to you." And she goes, "Why did you bring me this? This is literally all that I know. Why did you think this would impress me? Put it back." And Thanos was like, "Oh man," and then he did. But that's how that went. He was like, "Hey, look, I got you a ton of death," and she was like, "I already have this in spades. Why did you do this? This is a bad call."
God, I love it. It's so funny. It's so stupid, but I love it. I really do. I really do. Oh man. One of these days I'm gonna have a podcast episode where I sit down and I talk about the MCU as a whole and my thoughts on it. Spoiler alert: I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do think they got too formulaic at some point, and I have thoughts about that from then on. In terms of Thanos, I think he as a character was done great, but hollow too quickly deep in a very short amount of time because. I'll get to it later in a future episode because we did a little bit of the Snyder cut in the previous episode with Ishtiak as a guest, so I think it's only right that I eventually do an episode around the MCU. So I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
So any closing words, Andy?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out a quick game recommendation.
Yeah.
So. Because did I do 2 of these already or only 1?
I think only 1.
Yeah, I also think only 1. It's just been so long. 10,000 years?
In spades.
I'll give you such a crick in the neck. That's an Aladdin quote. Anyways, this week... so I do enjoy the video games. I also enjoy the board games. I think I'm gonna go with a video game this week, because I recommended Stardew. This week I'm gonna recommend Celeste. If you hadn't played Celeste or heard of Celeste, Celeste is a 2D platformer. It is very difficult. Has a lot of precise timing and jumps, but it also has very quick. I forget exactly what there's a gaming term for it, but basically, if you mess up, you get to start over very, very quickly. There's a term for that. I can't remember what it is. It's going to bother me. And it also has a really interesting and compelling story. It's about a girl named Madeline who wants to climb a mountain, and that is who you play as. Really great game. Definitely recommend it. And I recommend it broadly. If you don't think you're that into platformers, but you really like a good old motivational story, definitely give it a shot. The game. It's infinite continues. You just play it until you beat it, but it's still definitely a challenge. And part of the game's theme is about overcoming said challenge. It's really good. It's hard to explain it without dropping some major spoilers, but you're gonna have to trust me on this one. It's good. You can play it on PC. You can play it on Switch. Definitely play it with a controller. It wants to be played with a controller. I think it's available. I know it's available on Switch and on PC. Ironically, on Steam. Isn't that what we all wanted? And yeah, and then if you decide you really like it, you can go watch TaskBot speedrun it during Awesome Games Done Quick. It'll blow your freaking mind.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Recommendation from your lovable Andy. And if you don't trust Andy, at least trust me when I say you can trust Andy.
Have you played Celeste, Zane?
I have not. But
you should.
You definitely piqued my interest since the last time we did a session and we talked about the accessibility. And you made me think about like the mechanics in their time.
That during that, didn't I?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you made me think that they put a lot of attention into detail in how they wanted their game to function. And I love when that's the case because it shows a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, and love. And more importantly, a lot of thought went into the game, if that's the case. So, yeah.
Yeah, you should play it and either stream it or record it and upload it. I'd love to see your your like first impressions and your take on the game. I think that'd be real interesting.
You know what? Let's do it. I'm gonna write that down as a thing to do.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for listening, everybody. This has been episode 5 of season 2 of Essence of Zen After Dark. Again, if you are a podcast audio only listener, you can find the video version of the podcast at youtube.com/Essence of Zen. If you are a YouTuber who watched the video and you want to, listen to our podcast audio only when you're driving to or from work or doing work when you're working remote, then you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and a few other platforms, so long as it is a reliable podcast platform. All you got to do is essentially search for Essence of Zen, After Dark. If you also want to chat with us and maybe, give us some suggestions as for some topics you want us to cover, or even potentially be a guest on the show, then you can find us at Discord, and you can go to discord.chat/Essence of Zen and jump on the server and just say hi, howdy do, and blue skidoo, a boo boo. I don't know. I couldn't think of a finisher for that tag.
Should have quit while you were ahead.
My one flaw, man, or one of my many flaws, I should say.
Your Persian flaw, maybe.
Anyway, guys, we'll see you in the next podcast episode. I don't know when that'll be. I've been really awful with getting these out due to a lot of situations, but I guarantee you this is not the last you'll hear of us. I promise. I immediately end up dying tomorrow.
I'll cover for you.
We'll see you all later. All right. Peace.
Later. Or see you, nerds. Dang it.
Essence of Zen After Dark is recorded by and for geeks and nerds alike. The intro and outro songs were provided by ProLeader, who you can find at proleader.bandcamp.com. That is PROLETER.bandcamp.com. If you have suggestions for topics you want to see on the show, then feel free to drop by discord.chat/Essence of Zen and join the community and give us said suggestions. Thank you.